Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a book review from Hall of Horrors, and that is Book 5, Don't Scream. For starters, I'm going to be completely honest, this is one of my favorite Goosebumps books of all time I've ever read. This book is absolutely brilliant. It's fantastic. I don't know how people haven't talked about this book. I'm genuinely surprised how much I loved it. It was one of those situations where I bought it hearing, pretty decent things about it, not knowing what to expect. But after reading this book is absolutely, there's not even a level I could really put this book at on my love for it. As you'll see in the review part, it's probably not going to get a perfect 5, but I just want people to know that this is one of my all-time favorite books ever from Goosebumps. I absolutely love this book. It deals with a lot of realistic fears and horrors that can happen in real life. And it almost, at some points, doesn't feel like a Goosebumps book, which I think kind of helps the story stand out. But it still does feel like Goosebumps with the traditional twist ending and, the non-realistic things that are happening. But it really does play on realistic human fears. And I think off the bat, if you can find this, get this book right now and go read it. It is fantastic. So anyway, let's get into the plot review. So it takes place in a small town, normally where Goosebumps stories take place. Nothing really special about the town. Nothing really that's really spooky. It can just literally happen anywhere kind of place. And it starts on a bus, and this kid named Jack, every day after school, he has to ride the bus, and his two bullies ride the bus home on his route home. And those kids are named Daryl and Mickey. And Daryl and Mickey just make his life miserable every day. He has to come home from school and deal with these kids. And he's one of those kids that are susceptible to being susceptible for bullying, my bad. But he has some sarcasm to him. He has some witty humor, and he's really entertaining to read. He's one of the best written Goosebumps main characters ever in the history that I've read of Goosebumps, the entire franchise. So I think most people would really love Jack. Off the bat, Jack is awesomely written. Anywho, after Daryl and Mickey get off the bus one day, he notices this phone. He doesn't know if somebody has dropped the phone, maybe one of them dropped it, but he's never owned a cell phone, and he finds it, and he powers it on, and the phone boots up, and it works, and he finally has a phone. And, he's not about stealing things. He makes that point throughout the book. He's not about stealing things. He's not a thief. He doesn't want to be labeled that. But he finds the phone and decides to hang on to it and play with it on his ride home. And he notices that this voice is coming out of this phone. And this voice is saying, "You're never going to be able to get rid of me. I'm going to be your best friend forever." And he's like, "All right, you're just messing with me." He turns the phone off, and the voice still talks. So he knows that something is not all right with this phone. He tries to leave it on the bus, and one of the kids that ride home with him threw the phone at him, and it starts this entire book into what it became. And basically it's about this being that may or may not be living inside of this phone is stalking Jack and trying to make him do things for them against his will, because there's some serious threats that they make, saying that they're going to harm his family, harm him, harm anybody he tells that there's somebody in the phone. It's very creepy. It's almost like being blackmailed and stalked at the same time. Very real human emotions and of fear that go through Jack in this story, and you'll really identify with it. So he tries to find people to tell what happened to him. He tries explaining it to his parents, there's no real convincing there. But it does break through to Eli, and this being that may or may not be living inside of the phone does communicate with Eli, his best friend. And obviously there's some jealousy inherent there. And Jack and Eli come up with this plan to destroy the phone and get rid of whoever's living in the phone. But it turns out this being is an electropath, so it can move from device to device. And we see this first really scary imagery of I think it was Eli, had something really terrifying happen to him, and it's pretty visually disturbing that this happened to him. But they realize that this thing is not playing around, and it's moved devices, so the device somehow gets messed up and they have to go repair new devices. So then they realize how big of the scale it is, and they go throughout the book, this being transfers to TVs, and a couple of other things, to a new cell phone that they acquire. And there's one scene in a classroom after Jack gets a new phone. He finally gets his first phone that's actually his, and he can call him his own phone. And it's just so disturbing. Almost kind of on the same wavelength of what happened to Eli earlier. But it was so bizarre. And I can only imagine the pain and anguish Jack was going through. And it came to a point where Jack had to do things that he was not prepared to do, and that questioned his character, but he had to do it. And he did it to try to get rid of the being in this phone that may not be living in the phone. And come to find out, a little while down the road, there's a big reveal about the being, that they're artificial intelligence and they're a mistaken creation, and they want to make friends like themselves, basically. And what that entails, you'll discover in the book. I don't want to spoil any part of that, but there comes a point where somebody is moving away, and there's a prime opportunity in a moment decision towards the end of the book where Jack decides to give the device that this being happened to be in at the time to this person, and he thought that he got rid of it forever. And then the very last paragraph of the last chapter throws a big old plot twist, which kind of confuses the premise behind the villain in the story, and the book ends. So yeah, I didn't want to spoil too much because I don't want to give away what actually happens in this book towards the end. But I will say the positives in this book were the imagery, were the real life horror and the real life fears put in there, like the stalking, the fear of artificial intelligence, and just electronics taking over humanity itself was present in this book. Kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Like, who's going to believe him? So scary. And also, Jack is really entertaining to read. The parents are actually pretty entertaining to read as well. The friends are pretty good. Sometimes the friends could be hit or miss. Eli was a really good character. The sister, very sympathetic. Normally the sister and the brother, or the brother, is portrayed as like the annoying type. But in this story, they're sweet and innocent, which is kind of a breath of fresh air treatment of the siblings. Yeah, what happens to Eli, and similarly to Jack in the book, really scary. But the one drawback I had with this book, and I'm telling you, this is one of my all-time favorite books, and I can't believe I'm deducting points on this, but the confusion at the very ending makes kind of no sense, because what happens to this one particular person that's in possession of this being now, it would almost have to feel like that the being had this power all along and should have just done it. Or maybe there's a connection to the very beginning of the book with the discovery of the phone with this one particular person that ends up with the being, and maybe this person is kind of like riddled with AI themselves. That would make sense, but they never really elaborated on that in the book. And it kind of made me lost at the very end. I'm not going to lie. I felt kind of lost. I didn't understand how it happened because the book never laid out that that could have happened. And that kind of bugged me. It really did, because I loved this book so much, but that ending kind of took away from it. Just a little bit. So I deducted points. But still, I loved this book. This is still one of my all-time favorite books I have ever read in Goosebumps. So how many points did I deduct for that confusing part of the ending? I deducted like 0.3. So out of 0 to 5 stars, I graded this book a 4.7 out of 5. This is an excellent, exceptional book. It's over a 4.5 or higher. That means it's in the excellent category. I mean, honestly, this is one of the best AI Goosebumps books ever written. Honestly, even though It's Alive, I gave a perfect 5. Honestly, I love this book more than It's Alive. Personally, I don't know if that might correlate towards other books for some people, but yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm still at a loss for words of how amazed and pleasantly surprised I was while reading this. When I started it, I put it down after chapter 2 because I was, I've been reading other books here and there. But then once I started on chapter 3, I literally finished it in like an hour. I was just burning through it because I was so enamored with this story. And the pacing on this book is excellent. The length on it, it's kind of pushing a special edition length. So it's almost 140 pages. So it's a good read. I think most people would really enjoy this book. So yeah, 4.7 out of 5. Excellent book. What do you guys think about this book? Did you guys love it or hate it? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll see you next time.